welcome to Politics, Sunday Politics, I should say, right here from our Lagos studios, our global headquarters. I'm Jeffrey Uzama, sitting in for Shinwo Kimbale, who has taken, is on holiday. So there's a lot playing out as far as the politics is concerned. I like to always try to capture what has been playing out that you may or may not have missed out. But first, I hope you're, settling in well. The Yuletide, the peak of the Yuletide is just by the corner. Today is the 21st, so we have about 4 days to Christmas. And besides all of that, for those who are footballers or love football, you already know the AFCON starts today. Nigeria should be playing, I think, 2 days or 3 days from now. So all of that is what is uppermost on the minds of a lot of people in the country. But besides that, the things that are playing out in our polity is of greater concern to all of us. And that's why I started off by saying we would like to always bring you up to speed as to what is playing out. And a lot has happened the week that is just ended, preceding this particular week that is coming, which is going to lead us to the peak of the Yuletide. But we are starting off with a very good news, that the remaining children, all of the children abducted from St. Mary's Catholic Primary, private primary and secondary school in Papri community of Aguara local government area of Niger State, we can now tell you have been released. Security sources who confirmed their release today said the final batch of 115 students were freed today, bringing the total number of rescued children to 265, ending what they consider very traumatic for all of us, literally, whether you're from Niger State or not. It's been quite traumatic. Now, the abduction had occurred earlier as of November the 21st. That's almost a month away, or 1 month ago, when armed gunmen attacked that boarding school and abducted. The initial number we had is 315, but we're seeing some discrepancies in the numbers. Anyway, the 303 students and 12 teachers. Now, 50 of the students are said to have escaped on their own shortly after the incident, while another 100 were released. That's on December the 8th, following sustained security operations. The release of the remaining 115 students have now brought some level of relief to the families, and is being hailed as a major breakthrough by security agencies involved in the rescue effort. So that is what we can tell you as we speak right now, that the remaining children, as well as their teachers that were abducted on the 21st of November 2025, have now been released. Now, we are still going to look later on. Is a developing story. So if you see, it's been the breaking news scrolling on channels, television. We'll reconcile all of the numbers, because Khan had mentioned a specific number as to 315 or so. And so when you look at all of the numbers in terms of the discrepancy, I'm sure that will be reconciled much later. But the most important information right now, we can confirm to you that from security sources, that the final batch of the people that have been abducted, as promised by the government that they will secure their release, have now been released. I know the question on your mind is a question we've been asking, and a question we'll continue to ask, and that has to do with what happened to the the people that abducted these children, the criminals themselves who carried out this heinous crime. You can imagine your children, my children, going to school and being carried by terrorists for about a month. So what has happened to the people who carried out that crime? Well, the president has spoken when he presented a budget, and we hope he's going to stand by his word when he told the lawmakers, by extension, the Nigerian population, that next year there will be no mercy for anyone who is a terrorist armed group, whatever name they go by, because just about enough is enough. And I think we totally agree with the president on that. Is now to match those words with action. So we're grateful that eventually all of the children that were abducted in Papri in Niger State have now been released. We hope this can happen for other persons who are still in abductors' den. But let's get back to a few more things that I started talking about. Now, on Friday, the APC held its NEC meeting. That NEC meeting, a lot of things were said. And part of what they were celebrating is the fact that a lot of governors are now in their fold. By my last count, there should be about 28 or so, and all of that. And we understand that perhaps the governor of Plateau State, when he joins the fold, we're looking at the APC literally inching closer to about 30 governors before the 2027 general elections start. So some postulations to the fact that given the way Nigerian politics is played, it looks like Bola Tinubu has won the election already in 2027. Some people say no. It is not the governors that will decide whether the president has won the election or not. To give an example of 2023, maybe with what happened with the Labour Party, without a governor, without a structure, they put up an upset. Will that happen again? Or this is as good as sailing through for Bola Tinubu, the president? Now, all of that dynamics will come to play in 2027. But that's the far away. But let's tell you one fundamental thing he has said. He said there is no going back on state police. As far as the issue of state police is concerned, there is no going back because it's inevitable at this time for the nation to embrace state police. Now, there's a fear of this state police being captured by governors, even as they've done to some states, as we allude to most of the time when we have these conversations. But there's another thing he told the governor. He said, look, you better start paying, allowing the local government funds to go directly to local government, else I will sign an executive order and it will be deducted straight from FAC into the local government account. But let's take a listen to Mr. President.
Now that you have your elections at the local government level, you are the supervisors, the vigilators, the INEC, and everything of the local government. You elected them. Nobody helped you, the governors. So since you elected them, it means you know them. You are responsible for their survival. But the Supreme Court has capped it for you again, saying give them their money directly. So if you wait for my executive order, because I have the knife, I have the yam. I will cut it. Before FAC, we do the arithmetic, we know the percentage, and I've sent it to their account. I'm just being very respectful and understanding with my governors. Otherwise, if you don't start to implement it, FAC after FAC, you will see
I just had to chuckle because the last statement he made, like, I hope you get the drift, literally. If you don't do it, I'm going to do it. As President of the Federal Republic, have both the yam and the knife. Give the councils their money. So that's President Bola Tinubu at the NEC meeting of the APC. Let me bring in my guest. There's a potpourri of issues, but we're going to go back to what has played out in the oil and gas sector, the midstream, downstream sector, which is a subsector of the entire oil and gas sector. There has been some power play, a literal showdown, if you will, where a big player in the sector took down a regulator over issues of sabotage. Well, the regulator had said, look, some of the things you're producing in your mega refineries are not up to par, to international standard. However, we don't want issues of monopoly. So it's a complicated conversation, but what has been done has been done. And that is what is considered our cash cow. So whatever happens to the oil and gas sector, you and I must be interested because it accounts for a lot of our monies. If it goes down, at least at the moment, we will suffer as a country. So that's why that conversation is important. Let me bring in the president of the TUC, Trade Union Congress, who is also the president of Pengasan, Mr. Festus Osifo, who joins us from Abuja City. Mr. Osifo, it's good to see you. It's been a while. Thank you for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeffrey. Compliments of the season. Good evening to you, and good evening to the viewers.
So let's get started. This is the sector you play big in, besides TUC. This is your primary zone as far as the oil and gas subsector or the oil and gas sector is concerned. I want you to help us interpret what you make of what has played out. So just to binge through for everyone, it's a situation where we have been praying for some level of import substitution where we were aiming to get to energy security and being a net exporter of petroleum product. Then Dangote happened. then it looks like a lot of things changed, the dynamics changed, and a lot of power play started happening. He's accused the regulator of sabotage for his business, and the regulator has also accused him of monopoly. But what do you make of what has happened this week alone as far as the regulator and Dangote is concerned? We'll build on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I'm sorry, let me deviate a little bit before I come to this, your question. To first of all, I thank our security personnel for the breaking news that you just talked about in your channel. For us, we are quite elated, we are quite happy, because as a parent, when you see that, when your children go to school and they could not return home, I wonder if any of those father or mother, if they've been able to sleep in the last 1 month plus. So I thank the security outfit, led by the Office of the NSA and the Ministry of Defense for coming to the rescue of those children. And we wish to encourage the government that moving forward, this kind of thing should never repeat itself again. This kind of trauma should never happen again. So we must put in the right architecture to ensure that this never happen again. That Chibok, that Dapchi, and what just happened even in Kebbi and now in Niger never repeat itself again. Because these are some of the reasons why children wouldn't want to go to school, why parents would rather keep their kids at home rather than sending them to school. Then quickly also, Jeffrey, I will come back to your question now, but just a very quick one on the president. Please, Mr. President, you don't need an executive order to implement a Supreme Court decision. When Supreme Court decides in any part of the world, that decision immediately becomes law, and the institution of government must implement. There is no lacuna. There is no gap whatsoever. We don't need an executive order to implement the decision of the Supreme Court. The institution of government should immediately swing into action and implement what the Supreme Court has said. Having said that, coming down to what you just asked, yes, we've seen a lot of issues in the last 1 week within the oil and gas industry. We saw the various comments from Alhaji Aliko Dangote on the NMD PRA boss. And we also saw within the period as well, reduction of the price of PMS. Yes, we are quite happy that the price of PMS has come down. In fact, any politics that will bring down the price of PMS for us is a welcome development. So we thank Alhaji Aliko Dangote and the management of his refinery for bringing down the price of PMS. But we hope that this will be sustained for a very, very long time, because for us, anything that would improve the life of Nigerians is actually what we are interested in. Then on the issue that was raised regarding Farouk, yeah, for us, the issues that were raised, they were quite personal. We don't have any, there is nothing today that we can lay our hand on that. But Alhaji Aliko Dangote has said it, and I think he has also submitted petition to the appropriate quarters, and we want the appropriate quarters, the ICPC, as the case may be, to open up the issues, look at the issues, investigate them. Then anybody that is found culpable should be made to face the law, should be made to face the music. Because any country that cannot enforce, a consequence management, deterrence, will never grow economically and even politically. So for us, what has happened clearly, we see it as personal issues. We see it as issues that only Alhaji Engineer Farouk could attend to. Is the only person that could clear the air. But again, the industry has moved on. The president, being the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has waded in, and the boss of NMBPRA has resigned, and a new appointment came on board, both in the upstream and in the mid and downstream. And for us, the people appointed, yes, we vouch for their competence, we know them, and with the foundation that has already been laid. Because, Jeffrey, one of the challenges, or one of the fears we had earlier, when the PIA was passed, if you remember, the PEF, Petroleum Equalization Fund, as well as PPP-PRA, they came together to form one agency. And also, we had the downstream section of the old or defunct DPRO, coming to join them. So you had 3 agencies with 3 different DNA, with 3 different culture, with 3 different organizational structure coming together to form one. So we were quite skeptical from Pengassan's point of view that how is this going to happen? How are they going to gel? But to be very candid, in terms of the way it moved, the board of NMDPRO, led by Engineer Farouk, was able to bring about, to cement that relationship between these 3 agencies and make them a whole and make them one. And it became functional. And in all these, there was no employee that lost his or her job, because for us as unionists, that is the first thing we look at. How will this agency function? How will our member fit in? How will they have job tomorrow? And that for us was quite good. The similar thing happened in the upstream as well. So in general, a foundation has been laid for those that are just come on board to be able to build on and take off from there.
So let's get off the personal conversation. That's the responsibility of the ICPC. I understand they've even invited Aliko Dangote, the chairman of the Dangote Group. Let's talk about some of the issues that were raised. From an insider point of view, who sits and sees these things, he's constantly maintained that the regulator in this sense, or some players within the sector, are trying to sabotage him. Do you agree with his allegation?
Yes, Jeffrey, the word sabotage is very huge. It's very big. So what would have been done properly was to deconstruct it, open it up. What are the issues? Let's remove the big word sabotage. Sabotage could mean a lot of things. But you come down to say X is doing this, Y is doing this, and somewhat it has, it will affect our industry, or it's going to affect our operations. First, Jeffrey, for us, as a country, we must build institutions. We must build institutions and not individuals. We must be able to have institutions, regulators who are strong, who are solid, and who are also able and willing to support businesses to grow. And to also ensure that those businesses, they also operate within the ambit of the law. Because if you don't do that, we'll be akin to being a banana republic. So for us, the institution NMDPROA, the institution NUPROC must be strong, must be built, and must be solid. Then, when this is done, then all other operators within the industry will know that you have an institution that will back and will be able to bite. So, in terms of some of the issues that were raised, yes, first, we are extremely happy and we are extremely excited that Dangote Refinery is here in Nigeria. It is something of joy, it is something of pride to have such refinery of that magnitude situated in Nigeria. But for us, that refinery operating the way it is, there must be synergy between the management of the refinery and the government institutions. There must be synergy between them. Where there are issues, the regulators should understand that it's their responsibility as well to ensure that the refinery would grow. Then it is also the responsibility of those managing the refinery to also understand that there is a regulator they must work with. When both of them recognizes this, I think most of this friction are going to reduce. Because for us and for me, I think the issue is much more beyond Engineer Farouk. Engineer Farouk reports to an individual, reports to the Minister of Petroleum, right? And the PIA also gave a lot of responsibility to the Minister of Petroleum. That is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as it is today. So what that means is that anybody occupying that position will not do things clearly outside what the President has asked him to do, or rather, what the Minister of Petroleum has also asked him to do, because he reports directly to the Minister of Petroleum. So, but for us, there must be sanity in the industry. There must be, that industry, our industry must be able to recognize that there are stakeholders. And all these stakeholders, we must work together to to achieve a certain aim. So the word sabotage is relatively too humongous, but when we break it down, we'll be able to deconstruct. If you say interest, yes, we understand, because different individuals have different interests. For example, Aliko Dangote, the chairman of the Dangote Group, who built the refinery, for him, he is producing locally. And what he wants is that don't import PMS anymore. Let me be able to distribute this PMS in Nigeria. But those that are also importing, they also have their argument. And their argument is that, no, you are not a government institution. You are individual. So being an individual, you could import, you could even export your product. And the market should be open for every player to play in. I mean, that is their argument as well. Then for the regulator is looking at it that, we don't also, let's manage it. We have responsibility to ensure energy security. And in bringing about the energy security, we must ensure availability at all times. Okay, Dangote Refinery, how many, what's the PMS that you are producing today? What is the consumption of PMS in Nigeria? What is the gap? How can we now meet that need? So, I mean, these are all different interests. But one person will be able to align all these interests together for the benefit of not just the industry, but the benefit of the entire Nigerians. And that person is actually the Minister of Petroleum Resources. And that resides with Mr. President. So he's the one who should bring all these players together. All stakeholders, let's sit down together. What are the challenges? Dangote Refinery, what's your issue? Those importing, what is the problem? Then the regulators, what are the issues? They open everything up and come up with a concrete decision that will benefit the 230 million Nigerians. Yeah,
Mr. Super, there's something you mentioned, and I'm going to rephrase it and ask you for your own position if you are to sit with the president. For us, who are the final consumers of whatever it is being produced across this refinery, anything that brings the price down is good for us. If they fight till tomorrow, as long as the price is coming down, it's good for us. That's how the consumer wants to receive, given the fact that they bought it way cheaper before the deregulation of the sector. But this is the argument. Dangote says, I'm building this refinery. You're not supplying me enough crude. And we can understand the reason. For sales, for FX creation at some point has brought us into production deficit. So maybe we cannot be able to give him all he wants. That's the argument. He now has to go to buy WTI to refine in Nigeria. Now he has refined. There's no off-taking. He has put trucks on the streets of Nigeria to truck this product. But the other argument from the other side, like you said, is that it's a deregulated sector. We are not under any obligation to buy exclusively from you. You can buy from any other source, as long as it's cheap and affordable and the margin is good. So if you were to sit with the president, because these are all valid arguments as far as the players of the sector is concerned, and you were to advise the president as a key player, what will you tell the president to say, how will you advise the president to keep competition and avoid monopoly, yet support local production?
Yes. The very first thing for us, or for me, is that what is our daily consumption? So we carry out an assessment of what our true daily production would be. So by the time we achieve we could determine what our local production would be. Let's assume our local production, for the sake of argument, is, let's say, 50 million liters of PMS per day. Then I'll turn to Dangote Refinery. Dangote Refinery, what are you producing today? How many are you producing? What is the quantity of PMS that you produce on a daily basis? Number one. Then number two, what is the logistics that is in place for us to be able to truck out these PMS that you are producing? Then also, from the jetty, how many points are there that you could supply this PMS into and send to the hinterlands? So when we do that assessment, so let's assume Dangote today is producing, let's say, 30 million liters per day. How many of these 30 million liters, you have the logistics to support to be able to truck out or to put in the vessel and send out from the refinery and from the jetty? Let's assume is about 25 million liters. Then that means we have a shortfall. So that particular shortfall, how do we manage it? It's going to be via import. So now, marketers, you are bringing in this product from outside. How can we ensure, or the regulator, you must ensure that the integrity or the quality of what they are bringing in meets the right specification in terms of sulfur content and in terms of other additives. So we also define that. But if, for example, we carry out the assessment and we realize that Dangote Refinery, out of the 50 million liters, for example, that we need daily, is producing 55 million liters, then as government must also ensure that the people are not exploited. So in order to be able to manage that, that is where the regulators come in. Jeffrey, even as competition is in the Western world, there are a lot of countries today that on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, so to say, they come up with a price range. They come up with different kind of PMS, usually have 3 different types. So they come out with 3 different types of PMS and what the price range would be. So with that, you will not be able, even as a soap refiner, you will not be able to exploit the people because you cannot sell above that range. But the fear of most Nigerians is that, is our institution big today? Are they so strong today to be able to compel the refinery, for example, to sell within range so that Nigerians will not be exploited? So it depends on all these dynamics. If I'm meant to advise Mr. President, I'll put all these dynamics on the table. How many are we consuming? How many liters are we consuming today? How many liters is Dangote Refinery producing? If the liters that is being produced is much more, then I could now say, okay, those that are importing, let's have a conversation around this. Because they also have tank farms, they have businesses that they have invested. We could also discuss with Dangote to say, okay, these importers, in order to also support their business, because their business also needs to grow as well. So if we are to say, let's stop importation, or let us put a huge fine on importation, okay, the one we are producing today, in order to support their tank farm, because they have also employed people working for them, how do we also ensure that they have constant supply from the refinery? So it depends on all these dynamics for us to completely address the issue.
Okay, in all of this, if we had the multiplicity of refineries, perhaps it would have maybe made the conversation a bit more robust. And that brings me to the issue of the Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna refinery. I remember we had a conversation, I'm not sure whether it's this show, but I think it's this show, you and I, when that refinery came on stream, and there was the argument as to whether it was the issue of naphtha, whether it couldn't directly distillate up to the PMS that we use for our cars. I know you explained some other things to us in all of that, but where I'm going to with my question is, I remember you said that Labour must be giving credit for some of the contribution it made to make sure that that refinery came on stream, which was the insistence of an escrow account so that the monies will be released as appropriated. But now that refinery is not working. Can that refinery ever work?
Yes.
Were we deceived? Did the people in charge of that refinery, they lied to Nigerians that that refinery was working and it wasn't working? Because barely months after, till today, that refinery is not working.
Jeffrey, just what you said clearly, we had a conversation around this where we stated from the Pengassan point of view, after carrying out an assessment of a refinery, we stated and we informed Nigerians that the refinery as at then, the old Port Harcourt refinery was not producing PMS from the process. But what do happen is that it produces naphtha, and that naphtha, they bring in crack C5 from Indorama and from other suppliers, they blend it to now obtain PMS. So that was our position. But when you say, as at that time we visited the refinery was working. But was the refinery working optimally? That is a different conversation altogether. It's just like your car, right? So you could have an old Mercedes-Benz. And the old Mercedes-Benz, you want to drive from Port Harcourt to Aba. And you put on the old Mercedes-Benz. Maybe the old Mercedes-Benz normally at the highest efficiency level, it could hit maybe 140 kilometers per hour. But when you now put it on, it could only give you about 50 kilometers per hour. That old refinery will still get to Aba, but the time with which it will get from Port Harcourt to Aba may vary. So what we said as at then was that the refinery, I mean, you have different products that the refinery do refine. But there was challenge with that of PMS because the flue catalytic cracking unit was faulty. I mean, they've not brought it to steam as at then. Jeffrey, the refinery was shut down. The refinery was shut down, not that the refinery became bad. So we inquired. We had a meeting with the GCEO of NNPC, Engineer Bayo Ojulari. So Pengassan paid a courtesy visit, a far-finding visit to him. And we asked, what is actually the issue with the refinery? And he told us that, yes, that the refinery was working, producing kerosene, producing diesel and other products. But that the challenge was that the most lucrative product that the refinery will produce is PMS. So now that when you feed in, let's assume, about $1 million worth of crude, that what you will get out at the end of the day, if you sell it, you are going to make a loss. So that the refinery was producing at a loss. But as an institution, as a company, that they cannot operate at that rate. So that was why the refinery was shut down. But today, the good news is that, if you remember very well, we have been shouting, Pengassan, for almost 15 years now, that in the refining business, that what we want is that government should divest, bring about the NLNG model in the refinery operations. That is what we have been canvassing for. And today, that is the direction that NNPC is going. Because for us, what we have said is that if you look at the NLNG, government had 49% stake in it, while the private investors are made up of a consortium of Total Energy, Shell, and ENI. They have 51% in it. So with that, decisions are left greatly, driven by, investment decisions are driven by the return on investment at the end of the day. They are all driven by economics. So finally, for us, if we bring this model to bear in the refinery, it is going to work. And the way it is today, we have been assured by the NNPC management that that is the model they want to go for. Because we told the previous management that yes, fixing the refinery is good, but after fixing the refinery, don't operate. If you fix the refinery, you will bring in refiners who are investors all over the world. You bring them in and they buy 51% stake in the refinery. And that is the direction this new administration in NNPC are tilting towards. And we believe that that is going to work. Because that will reduce all political interferences. That is going to reduce all the pressure that is being mounted on NNPC. Because their stake in the refinery will just be 49%. While the investors will have 51%. This has been our position for over 15 years. And we have remained true to this. But thank God, they have assured us that that is the direction that they are looking at currently.
All right, Mr. Asifo, we'll take a break. I'll come back to you for just 1 minute for just one last question. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sunday Politics. Mr. Festus Asifo, the president of Pengassan and president of TUC, joins us from Abuja studio. The last leg of the conversation before I bring in my next. Mr. Asifo, so let's talk about, is that refinery in Port Harcourt and every other one, is it worth selling? Because some people are even alleging that there was in 2009, when President Olusegun Obasanjo wanted to dispose of it, so private investors, it was the Pengassan, for instance, that stood against it. So that's on one hand. But is this something anybody will want to buy?
No, Jeffrey, I've told you now that Pengassan, even before the time of Comrade Peter Esele, has been advocating that government should sell its shares. The reason why we don't want government to sell it 100% to private investor is because of the issue budget on energy security. So what we have advocated, Jeffrey, is what I have said earlier. So if government sells 51% stake in the refinery, what is going to happen? They will lose control. So that is actually selling. But for the benefit of Nigerians, retain 49% of it. So with 51%, isn't anybody that controls a company has 50 plus 1. So for us, that is the model. Yes, in selling the refinery, don't just sell it and you become 0% shareholder in it for national interest. But reduce your control of the refinery. This has been our position. And if government has adhered to this position over the years, we wouldn't have been where we are today. So all we have said, government should sell 51% stake in the refinery. And that is the direction with which the current management of NNPC is working towards. We believe the NLNG model is what is going to work. Yes, there are investors who surely will be willing to buy a stake in the refinery because our population in Nigeria is quite huge. And those refineries, when well maintained, without political pressures, without political interferences, they are going to work.
So I know this may be a difficult question, Mr. Osifo, but I will ask it nonetheless. In terms of evaluation, the Dangote refinery, we understand it built it with about $20 billion, 19 to 20 to 20, about $20 billion. If we were to sell, say, the Port Harcourt refinery, let's use just Port Harcourt refinery, how much do you think that refinery is worth today?
Yes, thank you. You said it from the onset that it was a very difficult question. Yeah, so it's very difficult for us to sit down here and just assume what it's going to be. But what we also want government to do, there was a time BPE came up with some funny pricing of the refineries. You know, Jeffrey, the way Nigeria works, if they are interested in selling the refinery to their friends and cronies, they are going to price it less. But what we want is that even to sell that 51% stake, there must be complete valuation. There are models of carrying out valuations all over the world. There are consultants that are extremely good in carrying out valuations. We have some locally, we have some internationally. We bring those consortiums together, they look at the refinery and they value the refinery and come up with what 51% shares of that refinery would be. Then they bring investors, they have conversations, and at the end they bid for it. Then whosoever wins would be asked to take over the 51% stake in the refinery. But it will be extremely difficult to just sit here and second guess.
I know you wear two caps. We've spoken a lot on your aspect of Pengassan. Let's talk about the labor part. And that has to do with the bites that the organized labor. For instance, the other day, we understand that organized labor, led by the NLC, I must posit that clearly, to say, look, we're sick and tired of the incessant kidnappings, abductions, and killing activities of terrorists and bandits across the country. So at least, commendably, for the first time in a long while, Labour was not planning to hit the street for wage increase or some of the things that we're familiar with them hitting the street for. They said this time because workers are also affected. Well, but some Nigerians didn't take it too seriously because they feel that organized labor has lost its bite. And before we know, they met with the president. Before we know, just some form of peaceful protest, and that was it. So my first question before the issue itself, do you agree as a president of TUC, maybe on behalf of organized labor, that organized labor has lost its bite as a pressure group to speak for the Nigerian people as against the government or hold the government to account?
No, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I completely disagree. So the reason why I disagree completely is because we must understand what organized labor are meant for. You know, I asked you the last time we were in this station, or was it you or one of your colleagues, that can you kindly tell me the name of the labor central organization in the US, in the UK, in Germany? You wouldn't know. Because, but that of Nigeria, NLC, TUC, we know them readily. The reason is this. In democracy, there is the role of labor in democracy. It is quite different from the role of labor during military regime. During military regime, you know, the Provisional Ruling Council, as the case may be, or the central ruling body sits together without consulting anybody. They make laws. And when they make the law, they just announce them over television. You are made to abide. So the next day, Labour is hitting the street and say, no, we don't agree with that. But in this case, it is democracy. So if you go to the US, when Republican is in power, as it is today, you have the Democrats who are supposed to be the check and balance in government. Labour is not the checks and balance in government under democracy. In military regime, yes, they are part of the civil society that form that resistance. But during democracy, those that ought to act as check and balance on the government is the opposition. That is their function. It is also defined in the rule and in the law. So if you now expect Labour to be championing the opposition, then we have missed it. Because in democracy, that is not how it works. Go to Ghana, just in Ghana here. Go and look at how the two parties, how they are checkmating themselves. That is how it should be. So that is not the function of Labour. So, but we are mistaken it because we are used to Labour during the Abacha era, during the old Obasanjo era, the Gowon era, and the Ibrahim Baba, IBB era. We are used to Labour always coming, agitation and fighting. Yes, during military regime, they form part of the civil society because there is no National Assembly. But today, we have National Assembly. We have state houses of assembly. And in those houses of assembly, you have the ruling party, you have the minority party. It is their responsibility to be checkmating what government is doing. Labor role, we clearly understand. And we are carrying out that function as it is. You introduce me as Pengasam president. I will challenge you and challenge any Nigerian to visit institutions in the oil and gas industry and ask the workers how they are fared in the last 5 years. Ask the workers how they are fared in the last 2-3 years. I can boastfully tell you with all humility that they are going to sing praises of what Labour or what Pengasam has done in their lives. And so for us, those are the role of Labour. So let's not misplace it. The people that are voted in that would checkmate government are the opposition party. So if they have lost their voice, that is not the fault of organized labor.
My apologies, Mr. You know, Nigerians are listening to you, and you know they have expectations. They have expectations of what an organized labor is. Maybe you're redefining it for all of us, but what we expect is that if the government is not performing, I know you've talked about the opposition. Which opposition are we talking about? The National Assembly has been accused of being a rubber stamp. All the governors are joining the APC. So what exactly do you want the Nigerian people to do? They want somebody to speak for them at the end of the day. But we'll take a break, and I'll come back to ask my last set of questions, Mr. Sifil. We'll be right back. Stay with us. TUC and Pengasam is my guest, joining us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Sifil, thank you for staying with us. I was talking about the concern of Nigerians, given the fact that almost all the governors are moving to the APC, and then the allegations or the claim or the perception that the legislature is also being captured by the executive in that sense. So that's why I was pushing on the fact that people want Labour to join in defending their cause, because you're the people's representative in that sense. And in addition to your response, I want you to speak to today is 21st, so we have barely maybe another 10 days to a brand new year or so, where we'll be welcome with that tax law that has gotten a lot of controversy around it. So I'd like you to comment on that as well, as far as the issue of the tax law. Is this something Labour, organized Labour, welcomes? Are there discrepancies you're also agitating over?
Yes, Jeffrey, first, in order to take it from the previous conversation we were having, so I tie it into this. You know, there are, for every one single time that we hit the streets to protest, we have solved over 5-10 different issues behind the scene, all right? For every single time you see an affiliate of TUC, an affiliate of NLC come to the street, there have been several conversations, there have been several CBAs that have been signed in the boardrooms, there have been collective bargaining agreements that have been negotiated and have been concluded. I will give you very quick instances, Jeffrey. You see the issue of cybersecurity levy that was about to be implemented at a time. I could tell you that we have over 3 different meetings at strategic level with government to be able to let them understand the reason why that will not be good for Nigerians. After several meetings, press conferences, and subtle agitation, it was put aside. What some people, a lot of Nigerians are extremely intelligent. They understand all this. Mostly our members, they are very, very intelligent. They understand. But what Nigeria will count as a win is if we are shuttered the entire economy before that was done. But through conversation, through superior logic and superior reasoning, that was done and it was put on hold. And I will also tell you that issues, for example, like the crude oil theft issues, we championed that particular cause. There was a time when it was necessary for us to protest and hit the street, we were on the street. But when it was time for us to have conversations, deep conversations with the then Balawuti-led team in Nappings or Nuims in NNPC, we sat down with them. We had several robust conversations. But we will not come to the public and start, oh, we were the one that did this. Again, the 15% that would have been imposed on the import duty, we started asking, the import of PMS. We're asking tough questions. How many are we producing locally? How many are we bringing in? If you bring this in and you impose the 15%, what is going to happen? We had meetings with high-level government officials who, at the end of the day, what happened to the 15%?
We're totally out of time.
These are... okay.
No, just land on your thought in 10 seconds.
10 seconds is actually too small. But overall, Labour will not replace the politicians. Nigerians elected them. If they are not performing, the next election cycle is here. Let us vote them out. Don't collect 5,000 naira and vote in people who cannot represent you. Vote for people that you truly know their attitude, you know their character, and you know that they will represent your point is extremely well. That should be the direction. Thank you.
Your point is well made. Absolutely. There's a lot to talk, but the time we have. Thank you so much. Festus Osifo is the president of Pengasan and also the president of TUC. We appreciate you, sir, for coming on the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me.
That's it on the program. Thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Ozano. Bye-bye.